The tea room, called the Willow, sat at the quiet end of a quiet street, in a village where very little happened, and where the people rather liked it that way. Nell had kept it for 6 years now, since it had passed to her from her grandmother, and she had come to love the small rituals of the morning best of all. She would arrive while the street was still gray, and turn the key, and let herself into the hush of the empty room. She would wake the copper kettle on its stand. She would draw back the lace curtains and let the first light in across the little tables, each one set the night before with its cup and its saucer, waiting. Her grandmother, Rosa, had opened the Willow as a young woman, and had poured tea in it for the better part of a lifetime, and the room still felt like her, somehow, the way a well-worn coat keeps the shape of the one who wore it. The same china, patterned with small blue flowers. The same brass bell above the door. The regulars still spoke of Rosa warmly, and Nell had grown up believing she knew every corner of the place and every story it held. She was about to learn that she did not. For a tea room, like a person, may keep one quiet secret tucked away and hold it gently for years and years until the morning it is ready to be told. And it was on one such ordinary morning, in the middle of an ordinary week, that Nell first noticed the extra cup. It sat at the table by the window, the small round one that looked out onto the street. She was quite certain she had set only one cup there the evening before, as she always did, for that table seated only one in the mornings before the crowd came. And yet this morning there were two. 2 cups, 2 saucers, set neatly across from one another, as though someone had meant to share a pot of tea. And what was strangest of all was that the second cup was not clean in the way a fresh cup is clean. It had been used, and then washed and set back in its place, still faintly warm to the touch, as though the tea in it had been drunk only a little while before. Nell stood looking at it for a long moment, a puzzled half-smile on her face. Then she washed the cup again and put it away and told herself she had simply miscounted. It was the sort of thing one told oneself. But the next morning the extra cup was there again. This time she did not tell herself she had miscounted. She stood in the quiet of the early room and looked at the 2 cups for a long while, and she felt, oddly, not frightened at all, but touched, as though she had stumbled upon something tender that had not quite been meant for her eyes. She checked the door. It was locked, exactly as she had left it the night before. She checked the little window. It was latched from the inside. There was no other way in, and no sign at all that anyone had come or gone, not a footprint on the step nor a chair out of its place. And yet the tea in the second cup had plainly been warm. Among the regulars of the Willow was a retired schoolteacher named Arthur, who came each morning at 8:30 and took the same corner table and read his newspaper very slowly, in the manner of a man who has all the time in the world and intends to enjoy every minute of it. Nell had known him for years. When she mentioned the small mystery to him, half laughing at herself, his eyes brightened in a way she had not seen them do in some time. 2 cups, he said, folding his paper away entirely, which he almost never did, and the second one used and washed. Well now, that is a proper little puzzle, now. That is the most interesting thing I have heard all winter. He tapped the table thoughtfully. You lock the door at night, I take it, and it is locked still in the morning when you come. Locked tight, said Nell. I have the only key. She paused. The only key that I know of. They decided, the 2 of them, to pay a little more attention. Nell began to look more carefully each night before she left, counting the cups aloud, setting the window table with a single saucer and studying it a moment before she turned out the lamp. And each morning the extra cup was waiting, patient and warm, no matter how carefully she had counted. It was never anything more than that. Nothing was taken, nothing was disturbed, only the one small cup, set out as if for company, and gently washed again by hands she never saw. Arthur, for his part, took to the mystery like a man half his age. He arrived one morning with a small notebook and wrote down the times and the weather, and whether the cup had been warm or merely cool, in a careful hand, as though he were assembling evidence for a court of law. He proposed a great many theories, each one more unlikely and more delightful than the last. Perhaps it was a sleepwalker, he said, who dreamed of tea. Perhaps it was a very tidy cat. Perhaps the room itself remembered some old habit and repeated it in the night. the way an old clock will sometimes chime an hour that no longer exists. Nell laughed at every one of them and did not quite believe any, and found, to her surprise, that she was no longer troubled by the cup in the least. If anything, she had come to look forward to it. There was something comforting in it, in being kept quiet company by a guest who asked for nothing and left only a clean cup behind. Whoever it was, she thought they loved the place. You cannot pretend a thing like that. It was there in the careful way the cup was always set, just so, exactly centered upon its saucer. It is a kind sort of mystery, Arthur observed one morning, stirring his tea. Whoever it is means no harm. They come for the tea, and they tidy up after themselves, and they go. That is not the behavior of a thief. That is the behavior of a guest. He looked out at the window table with something like fondness. The question is only who and why, and I find I should very much like to know. The answer, when it came quietly, the way the best answers often do. Nell had forgotten her ledger one evening, and driven back to the tea room in the last of the dusk. And as she turned into the street, she saw that the lamp at the window table was softly lit. She let herself in without a sound, and there, at the little round table by the window, sat an old man she half knew, a Mr. Hale who lived at the end of the lane, with a pot of tea between two cups and an empty chair across from him, and his hand resting gently on the table as though it lay near another hand that was not there. He looked up and saw her, and his face filled with the particular embarrassment of a person discovered in something private and dear. He began at once to apologize. He reached into his coat and drew out a small brass key, worn smooth with the years, and set it on the table between them as though surrendering. "It was your grandmother's key," he said. "Rosa's. She gave it to me a very long time ago, when we were young, and I never had the heart to give it back, and she never once asked me to." He looked at the empty chair. "We sat at this table every morning for the better part of 40 years, she and I. This very table. She would have the tea already poured before I arrived, and she would pretend to scold me for being late, and I was always late, and it was always the best part of my day. She kept a tin of shortbread behind the counter that she baked herself, and she would slide a piece across to me when she thought no one was looking, though everyone was always looking, and no one ever once minded. She knew the order of every soul in this village, and their small troubles besides, and she had a way of setting a pot of tea down in front of a person that made them feel the whole day might yet turn out well after all." His voice grew soft. "When she passed, I found I could not stop coming. So I come very early, before the world is awake, and I make the tea the way she liked it, and I sit with her a little while. I set out her cup. It is a foolish thing for an old man to do. I am sorry. I ought to have told you." Nell did not say anything for a moment. She was thinking of her grandmother, and of how she had never known that the small window table had meant so much to anyone. "You will keep the key," Nell said at last. She pushed it gently back across the table toward him. "It is yours. She gave it to you." And then, because it seemed the only right thing, she went to the stand and woke the copper kettle, and she fetched down a third cup, and she sat herself in the empty chair across from him, which she hoped he would not mind, only for this morning. "Tell me about her," she said. "The grandmother I had, and the Rosa you knew. I should like to hear what she was like in the mornings at this table all those years ago." And so he told her. The lamp burned warm at the window, and the tea went round, and outside the first gray light came up over the quiet street, and an old man spoke of an old love as though it had happened yesterday, which in the way that such things do, it very nearly had. After that morning, Mr. Hale came to the Willow openly, and always early, and Nell kept a cup for him at the window table, set out fresh each night on purpose. It was, she thought, the finest little mystery that was ever solved, for it left behind it not an answer only, but a friend. And on the quiet mornings ever after, when Nell turned her key in the lock and stepped into the hush of the empty room and saw the two cups waiting there at the window, she no longer felt that she had solved anything at all. She felt, rather, that she had been let in on a secret the room had been keeping for her grandmother all this while, and had only now decided she was ready to share. She would wake the copper kettle and draw back the lace curtains and let the first light in across the little tables. And the window cup she would leave exactly where it was. wherever you happen to be tonight, and whatever quiet task is keeping your hands busy, thank you for spending this little while here with us. Rest easy, and whenever you are ready, there will always be another story waiting.